All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today we're tackling something everyone has experienced. I mean, who hasn't gone through some kind of education, right?
Right.
But we're going to explore how to make learning truly captivating.
That sticks with you, yeah.
Exactly, the kind that sparks excitement and stays with you long after those textbooks are closed.
Well, for this deep dive, we'll be looking at a TEDx talk by Diego Apollo. He's an educator with some um, really thought-provoking ideas on how teaching methods need to evolve.
To truly engage today's learners.
Exactly, and he calls this Education 4.0.
I like that.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, Apollo asks a question that really got me thinking. Um, he asks us to think back to those classes,
Mhm.
the ones where the information just seemed to go in one ear and out the other.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right, like haven't we all been there? It's like a common experience. He paints this vision of a world where learning is actually something that excites us and has a lasting impact. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely a compelling vision. And the way Apollo delivers his message is quite engaging. He uses a lot of humor, and personal anecdotes to illustrate his points, which really helps to make those sometimes kind of abstract ideas feel more relatable.
Yeah, I love how he kicks things off by comparing 19th century models, 20th century teachers, and 21st century students.
Yeah, it's such a clever way to highlight that, well, technology has advanced so rapidly, but our teaching methods often feel stuck in the past. It's like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole sometimes.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, and he actually shares a personal story about his own mother and his own experience in school. Both of them, despite being decades apart, learned through rote memorization.
It's really a stark illustration of how little has changed in some classrooms.
It makes you wonder how many of us have felt like learning was more about just regurgitating facts,
Mm-hmm.
than truly understanding them. I know I've had those moments where I was like, am I really getting this or am I just going through the motions?
Just going through the motions, yeah. And this leads Apollo to his next point, which is that many traditional learning theories, while valuable in their own time, weren't designed for the digital age that we live in now.
And here's where he uses this hilarious analogy. Just imagine Maria Montessori taking a selfie or David Ausubel posting motivational quotes on social media. It's so funny to picture.
It is, and it really highlights a serious disconnect between those learning theories of the past and the tools and technologies that we have available today.
Exactly. And it's not to say that these traditional theories are useless, but he argues that we need to adapt them to this digital age. He talks about some emerging theories, like connectivism, which leverages digital platforms, and nativism, which emphasizes learning by doing.
Right, and these theories are kind of built for the way we learn now.
Could you break those theories down a bit more for our listener? I think understanding the core principles behind these newer approaches would be super helpful.
Oh, absolutely. So connectivism basically argues that learning happens through networks and connections. Think about the way we use social media, online forums, and other digital platforms to access information and connect with others who share our interests.
I see where you're going with this.
This theory recognizes that knowledge is distributed across these networks and that learning is about being able to navigate and make sense of this interconnected world.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about nativism? I've heard the term, but I'm not sure I fully grasp it.
So nativism emphasizes the idea that we are like born with this innate capacity for learning and that we learn best through experience and exploration. Like think about how young children learn.
Yeah, they're like little sponges.
They're constantly experimenting, interacting with their environment, and figuring things out through trial and error. Nativism really encourages us to tap into that natural curiosity and create learning experiences that are more active and engaging.
I'm starting to see how these newer theories could really shake things up in education.
Oh, for sure. And Apollo doesn't just talk about these ideas, he shows them in action. Like he includes this video clip in his talk that shows a classroom of students diligently reciting multiplication tables, right?
Oh, I remember those days.
While at the same time, their teacher is excitedly announcing the arrival of brand new computers.
Oh, the irony.
It's a pretty ironic scene.
I could just picture those students thinking, we're stuck here memorizing times tables when there's this whole world of information and possibilities waiting for us on those computers over there. It's like a perfect example of how sometimes outdated practices can clash with the potential of new technology.
Exactly. And this clip leads into Apollo's argument that Education 4.0 is about so much more than just gadgets. He believes it's about fostering those genuine connections and understanding the why behind what we're learning.
The purpose.
Yeah, the purpose.
Yeah.
He shares this really personal story about losing his passion for literature because of a teacher's approach.
Oh, wow.
It's a powerful reminder of the impact educators can have,
For better or for worse.
for better or for worse.
It makes you think about those teachers who ignited your own curiosity.
And the ones who maybe unintentionally extinguished it.
Yeah. And this personal anecdote is a great lead-in to Apollo's core message about what he believes education should strive to achieve. He introduces a framework with 3 key elements:
Okay, I'm listening.
knowing, doing, and being.
Knowing, doing, and being.
Right. So knowing, of course, refers to disciplinary knowledge.
Facts, right.
Yeah, like the foundational stuff. Doing is all about taking that knowledge and applying it in real-world contexts.
So it's not just about memorizing those facts, but about understanding how those facts connect to the world around us and like using them to solve problems or create something new.
Exactly. And then there's being. This element focuses on developing character and becoming a well-rounded individual.
I like that.
It's about cultivating those qualities that make us good citizens, compassionate human beings, and those lifelong learners.
It sounds like Apollo is advocating for a more holistic approach to education.
One that goes beyond just the academics.
Yeah.
And recognizes the importance of personal growth and, social responsibility.
And he makes this really important distinction about the learning environment itself. He believes that education should be cooperative, not competitive.
Okay.
He argues that it should foster emotional connections and a sense of purpose, not just be a race to the top of the class.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
What do you think about that idea? It seems like a pretty radical departure from the traditional model of education where, grades and individual achievement are often prioritized above all else.
It's definitely a shift in mindset, that's for sure. And it raises some really interesting questions about how we assess learning and measure success. If we move away from this hyper-competitive environment, how do we make sure that students are still motivated to learn and excel?
That's a great point. It seems like Apollo is challenging us to rethink some pretty fundamental assumptions about the purpose of education and how we define success.
He is. And he argues that true success in education is not just about accumulating knowledge or getting those high marks.
It's got to be more than that.
It's about rekindling that spark, that joy and passion for learning that we all had as children.
He has this great quote that really gets at that idea. He says, "Education that doesn't excite is just information." I mean, how powerful is that? It really makes you stop and think about your own learning experiences. Like, when was the last time you were genuinely excited to learn something new?
That is a fantastic question for all of us to think about. It's so easy to get caught up in the routine of work and daily life that we forget to nurture that, that innate curiosity and love of learning that we all have.
For sure. And Apollo shares that he actually learned more from his family than from many academics. He credits his grandmother, in particular, for instilling in him a love of storytelling and a sense of resilience. This really highlights the impact that personal connections and mentorship can have on our educational journeys.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the knowledge that's passed down, but about the qualities that are embodied and the way those people approach life. Like, they demonstrate resilience and a love of learning through their actions, which can have such a profound impact.
It's amazing how those informal learning experiences, those moments of connection and shared discovery, can often shape us more profoundly than any formal classroom setting.
They really can. And it speaks to the power of human connection and the importance of creating those learning environments where those connections can flourish. And it's fascinating how Apollo kind of challenges this whole traditional idea of success, He's not saying those academic achievements are meaningless, but he's suggesting that genuine education is about personal growth and becoming a better person. It's not just about collecting titles and accolades.
Yeah, I think that resonates with a lot of people, especially today when there's just so much pressure to achieve and succeed. It's refreshing to hear someone say that, the real measure of success is not just what you know, but who you are and how you contribute to the world around you.
Absolutely.
Your character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he argues that this shift in mindset from competition to cooperation and from individual achievement to more collective growth has the potential to transform not only our approach to education, but also our society as a whole.
Yeah, I can see how fostering a more cooperative and collaborative spirit in education could really have these ripple effects throughout society. It could help us break down those barriers that often divide us and create a more, inclusive and equitable world.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Apollo's vision of Education 4.0 isn't just confined to the classroom either.
Right.
He believes that we can all be teachers in our own way, sharing our knowledge, passions, and experiences with others. He really encourages us to see learning as this continuous and collaborative process that happens everywhere.
It's not just about being in school.
It's not about being in school. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that idea. It really kind of democratizes learning and empowers everyone to be both a learner and a teacher. It's about recognizing that we all have something unique to offer and that we can all benefit from sharing our perspectives and experiences with one another.
Exactly. And he challenges us to think about the small acts we can do each day to rekindle the excitement of learning in our own lives and to inspire others to do the same. It could be something as simple as picking up a book on a topic we've always been curious about, or signing up for an online course, or even just having a conversation with someone who has, different experiences and perspectives than our own.
Yeah. What stands out to you as a small but impactful step that someone could take today to kind of embrace this idea of lifelong learning and spark their own curiosity?
I think setting aside dedicated time each day for learning is huge, even if it's just for 15 or 20 minutes.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit, yeah. It's about creating that habit and carving out that space for intellectual exploration. It could involve reading an article on a new subject or listening to a podcast like this one,
Yeah.
or even just engaging in a thoughtful conversation with a friend or a colleague.
It's a great suggestion. It's so
Yeah.
practical and attainable.
Yeah.
It's not about making these huge changes to your entire life,
Yeah.
but about making those small, consistent efforts to cultivate that curiosity and love of learning.
Right, exactly. It's about those small steps. And Apollo really emphasizes that it's not about becoming an expert overnight either.
Right.
It's about embracing the process, you know?
The journey.
Yeah, the journey, being open to those new ideas and recognizing that learning is a lifelong journey, really.
It's those little aha moments, those moments of discovery when something clicks and we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves or the world around
I
us.
love those.
Me too. Those are the best.
Yeah.
And he reminds us that it's okay to be passionate, even a little crazy about the things we care about. That passion is what drives us to learn and explore and make a difference.
For sure. He also talks about the importance of recognizing and embracing those individual learning styles too.
Yes.
Some people learn best through reading, others through those more hands-on experiences, and still others through collaboration and discussion. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning, and Apollo really encourages us to find what works best for us and to honor those unique ways of engaging with the world.
That's such a great point. It's about giving ourselves permission
Right.
to learn in a way that feels authentic and engaging to us rather than trying to fit into some prescribed mold.
Yeah.
Like this is how you're supposed to learn.
Exactly.
This is the only way.
Right. And this whole idea of personalized learning is becoming so increasingly important, especially in this digital age where we have access to such a vast array of learning resources and technologies. It's not just about passively absorbing information from a single source anymore, but about actively curating those learning experiences and tailoring them to our individual needs and interests.
We're in control.
We are.
Yeah, and Apollo reminds us that the power to change the way we learn and teach lies within each of us. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix the system or create this perfect learning environment. It's about taking ownership of our own learning journey
Yeah.
and becoming those agents of change in our own lives and communities.
It's empowering.
That's a really empowering message.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're not just passive recipients of knowledge, but active participants in shaping our own education and the education of those around us.
And he encourages us to think about what small act we can do today to make a difference. To spark a love of learning in someone else or to contribute to a more vibrant and intellectually curious community.
It's so inspiring to hear someone speak so passionately about education and the power it has to transform us.
Right. It's like Apollo really makes us stop and think beyond those traditional models and look at, the human side of it all.
It makes it personal.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes his message so compelling. It speaks to this universal desire to learn and grow and connect with something bigger than ourselves. It reminds us that education isn't just about gaining knowledge, but about becoming the best versions of ourselves.
It's so easy to lose sight of that. We get caught up in the daily grind and we forget that, we're all naturally curious. We have this thirst for knowledge inside us. Apollo reminds us that learning shouldn't be a chore. It should be exciting. An adventure,
Yeah.
It should enrich our lives and help us make a real difference.
Absolutely. And he also touches on the importance of emotional connection in education too.
Right.
It's not enough to just know facts.
Right. You have to feel it.
Yeah, we have to connect with it, feel connected to the material, to the people we're learning with, and even to the purpose behind it all.
And that's where his knowing, doing, being framework comes in, right? It's about bringing it all together, not just learning things in isolation, but actually using what we learn to grow as people.
Exactly. It's about seeing the big picture. How do the things we learn connect to our values, our goals, our dreams for the future?
And what I find really powerful about his message is that it gives us permission to be ourselves in the learning process. We don't have to try to be perfect or fit into some mold. It's about embracing who we are, what we're passionate about, and finding what works for us as learners.
It's so true. It's about celebrating the fact that we all learn in different ways and creating spaces where everyone feels valued and can share their unique talents.
Apollo's talk is a real call to action.
It is.
But it also reminds us that we don't have to wait for permission to make a change. We can start today, right now, in our own little ways, by keeping that love of learning alive in ourselves and sharing it with others.
He has that great closing line where he asks, what small act can you do today to make learning exciting again, for yourself or for someone else? It's simple, but it really makes you think about the impact we can all have.
Well, on that note, we encourage you to check out Diego Apollo's full TEDx talk and, really dive into these ideas. And remember, education isn't just about filling our heads with facts. It's about opening our hearts and minds and making the world a better place.
I think that's a great place to leave it.
I do too. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.